Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your hospitality and your leadership on these critically important issues. And I want to thank you for your invitation to testify today and for all that you're doing to ensure that the VA has the tools and authority it needs to help our brave men and women who are returning from Iraq and Afghanistan, nursing the wounds of war. I'm here today to testify about a tragedy that took place in 2003 on the outskirts of Basra in Iraq. I'm here on behalf of Lieutenant Colonel James Gentry and the brave men and women who served under his command in the 1st Battalion, 152nd Infantry of the Indiana National Guard. I spoke with Lieutenant Colonel Gentry by phone just this last week. Unfortunately, he is at home with his wife, Luann, waging a valiant fight against terminal cancer. The Lieutenant Colonel was a healthy man when he left for Iraq. Today, he is fighting for his life. Tragically, many of his men are facing their own bleak prognosis as a result of their exposure to sodium dichromate, one of the most lethal carcinogens in existence. The chemical is used as an anti-corrosive for pipes. It was strewn all over the water treatment facility guarded by the 152nd Infantry. More than 600 soldiers from Indiana, Oregon, West Virginia, and South Carolina were exposed. One Indiana Guardsman has already died from lung disease, and the Army has classified it as a service-related death. Dozens of others have come forward with a range of serious respiratory symptoms. The DoD Inspector General just launched an investigation into the breakdowns and gaps in our system that allowed this tragic exposure to happen. Neither the Army nor the private contractor, KBR, performed an environmental risk assessment of the site, so our soldiers were literally breathing in this chemical and swallowing it for months. Our country's reliance on military contractors and their responsibility to their bottom line versus our soldiers' safety is the topic for another day and for another hearing. Mr. Chairman, today I would like to tell this committee about Senate Bill 1779. It is legislation that I have written to ensure that we provide full and timely medical care to soldiers exposed to hazardous chemicals during wartime military service like those on the outskirts of Basra. The Health Care for Veterans Exposed to Chemical Hazards Act of 2009 is bipartisan legislation that has already been co-sponsored by Senators Lugar, Dorgan, Rockefeller, Byrd, Wyden, and Merkley. With a CBO score of just $10 million, it is a bill with a modest cost but a critical objective: to ensure that we do right by America's soldiers exposed to toxic chemicals while defending our country. This bill is modeled after similar legislation that Congress approved in 1978 following the Agent Orange exposure in the Vietnam conflict. The bill ensured lifelong VA care for soldiers unwittingly exposed to the cancer-causing herbicide in the jungles of Vietnam. Some have called toxic industrial hazards the Agent Orange of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. My legislation would make soldiers eligible for medical examinations, laboratory tests, hospital care, and nursing services. It would ensure that soldiers receive priority health care at VA facilities. It would recognize a veteran's own report of exposure and inclusion on a Department of Defense registry as sufficient proof to receive medical care, barring evidence to the contrary. My legislation will help to ensure that we provide the best possible care for American soldiers exposed to environmental hazards during the reconstruction of Iraq and Afghanistan. At a bare minimum, Mr. Chairman, my bill will ensure compassionate care so families are spared the added grief of going from doctor to doctor in their loved one's final days, searching for an accurate diagnosis. The 1978 Agent Orange Registry only covered one chemical compound, but our bill is broader. It covers all members of the armed forces who have been exposed to any environmental chemical hazard, not just sodium dichromate. It recognizes a new set of risks that soldiers face today throughout the world. Senate testimony last year identified at least 7 serious instances of potential contamination involving different industrial hazards: sulfur fires, ionizing radiation, sarin gas, and depleted uranium, to name just a few. S. 1997 ensures that veterans who are exposed to these chemicals will be eligible for hospital care, medical services, and nursing home care. It allows the Secretary of Defense to identify the hazards of greatest concern that warrant special attention from the VA. Our bill switches the burden of proof from the soldier to the government, where in such cases it rightfully belongs. Soldiers exposed to toxic chemicals will receive care presumptively unless the VA can show their illness is not related to their service. Exposure to toxic chemicals is a threat no service member should have to face. It is our moral obligation to offer access to prompt quality care. We should cut the red tape for these heroes. Mr. Chairman, I promised Colonel Gentry that I would fight for his men here in Congress. I promised him I would use my position to get them the care they deserve and to make sure we protect our soldiers from preventable risks like these in the future. This tragedy will be compounded if we do not take the steps to provide the best medical care our country has to offer. I want to thank you for this opportunity to offer this testimony today. I urge this committee to adopt S. 1997 to honor the sacrifice of Lieutenant Colonel Gentry and all of our brave men and women doing the hard, dangerous work to keep America safe. It is the least we can do for them.